We're stepping back into the 90s, and tonight's batch of movies starts with a jungle-sized snack attack, then slides into slick apartment paranoia. We'll also be turning down the lights for a ghost story that actually has some teeth, then take a bizarre tour through early 90s cyber delirium before closing out with the horror tape you didn't watch, you survived. We're all about to enter the VHS vault. What's up out there, everybody? Welcome back to Movies Never Say Die. I'm Anthony DeJoya, and this is the VHS Vault, where we crack open the plastic dusty clamshells to celebrate the movies that basically lived on late night cable and on video store staff pick walls. I also think this lineup helped give some love to the weird, wild, and wonderfully rewatchable movies from our past that I think can still easily be the main event of any retro movie weekend. This episode is a perfect slow descent from popcorn creature feature chaos to full-on why did I watch this alone at night horror. So hit like if you miss the days when a movie could be ridiculous, creepy, and kind of comforting all at the same time. And if you are new here, subscribe and join the crew if you end up having fun with this video, because together we're building the ultimate retro movie family. Now let's cue up this first tape, because in this one the jungle is hungry and it's open for business. Deep in the Amazon, a documentary crew just wanted some pretty shots and some serious nature vibes, but they brought along a shady guide, a stressed out boat captain, and enough ego to feed something very, very hungry, because when the river goes quiet, the jungle starts feeling like a meat locker. It's 1997's Anaconda, starring Jennifer Lopez, Ice Cube, Jon Voight, and Owen Wilson. To me, Anaconda was the kind of 90s rental you grabbed simply because the box art called out to you when you walked by. I mean, who didn't want to see Ice Cube and J-Lo battling a giant snake? I know I did. It's popcorn monster cinema with zero shame, and honestly, that confidence is half the flavor. You get this documentary crew heading out into the Amazon like they're filming for Nat Geo, but the movie's real mission is to turn this team adventure into a floating panic attack. And with its foot on the gas in terms of pacing, I think it succeeds. I remember seeing this in the theater, and even then it was silly, but it soon became comfort cinema through cable viewings and rentals when all the good new releases were gone. And this one wasn't just a cable staple, it was a bona fide hit. The budget is widely listed at around $45 million. It opened with $16.6 million in the US and Canada, and it went on to gross roughly $136.9 million worldwide. That's monster movie math working perfectly. Recognizable faces, a simple premise, and a creature that turns every scene into a thrill ride of suspense is a perfect recipe. Critics, though, were hit or miss. Stephen Holden, in his review at the Times, called it a trashingly entertaining reptilian version of Jaws, which I actually think is a solid compliment. The cast is pure 90s Hollywood. Jennifer Lopez as the capable lead, Ice Cube as the guy who's basically been mentally clocked out since the first Mosquito. Owen Wilson shows up as Owen Wilson, and then we get Jon Voight arriving on the scene, delivering one of the most gloriously unhinged performances of the decade. His whole vibe is international villain sans cat on his lap, and every time he speaks, this jungle expedition gets 5% campier.
What is this?
Anaconda skin.
Is snakes out there this big?
Is it classy? Not remotely. Are the characters making smart decisions? Hell no. But as a nostalgic watch, I think it's the perfect Friday night, lights off, snacks on movie. It's loud, it's silly, it's easily consumable, and weirdly cozy. The performances inflate the bland characters perfectly, and the group of familiar faces here, I think, adds just enough pop each time the body count racks up. Plus, Voight is just a delightful menace with his farcical performance. He's like that drunk dude at the bar trying to show you what he thinks is his spot-on impression of Marlon Brando, and all the silliness in this movie just works. Now, after all that campy jungle adventure, let's trade the river and the trees for a high-rise, glass walls, and zero boundaries. It's downtown living where the amenities include a view of you. Here, a successful woman moves into a gorgeous high-rise that screams 90s money, complete with mood lighting, suspicious neighbors, and a vibe that says no one here owns curtains. And the more comfortable she gets, the more she realizes that something else is getting comfortable watching her. It's Sliver from 1993, starring Sharon Stone, William Baldwin, and Tom Berenger. I think many would agree when I say Sliver is peak late night cable with your finger hovering over the mute button so Stone wouldn't wake the rest of the house. It's glossy, lurid, and paranoid in that very early 90s way where every apartment has dramatic lighting and every hallway feels like it was designed specifically for shadows and long, slow walks. Sharon Stone here plays the successful, newly single woman who moves into this sleek Manhattan high-rise and immediately begins to discover that the building has a hobby of watching people, not metaphorically, but literally. Cameras, monitors, the whole welcome home, we see you voyeuristic package. Financially, Sliver started strong in theaters, opening to about $12.1 million in the US and Canada. It ultimately would pull in around $36.3 million domestically, with worldwide numbers soaring to around $116.3 million on a budget in the neighborhood of $30 to $40 million. So audiences were in. Critics, on the other hand, were out on this movie. In her review with The Times, Janet Maslin said the story was senseless and that its star, Sharon Stone, was given little of interest to do, and it's tough. She's not entirely wrong, but I don't think it hinders the guilty pleasure factor that fuels this entire movie. And after all these years, its nostalgia has grown. Now part of the fun is its time capsule factor, just remembrance back to the golden age of erotic thrillers in the 90s. This is Sharon Stone coming off Basic Instinct Aftershock, pulling in a salary of $2.5 million plus percentages. You get Joe Esterhaas on the script, Philip Noyce directing, so the movie is constantly trying to look expensive and dangerous, even when it's being more than a little ridiculous. You get William Baldwin bringing that handsome but mysterious vibe, Tom Berenger brings the grizzled tension, and the building itself, I think, really does a lot of the heavy lifting as the real co-star here. Floor-to-ceiling windows, lots of exposure, cold surfaces, and plenty of suspicious silence.
Central air conditioning, absolutely terrific kitchen. I love the view.
It actually had to be edited 110 times to avoid an NC-17 rating, and you know what? For young Anthony back in the day, I truly do hope the unrated director's cut makes it to 4K someday, because is it a great thriller? Not really, but is it a great vibe? I absolutely think so. I think it's the kind of movie that just pulls you in, lures you into the hook, you're into it, and it's over before you know it. It makes you want to close your blinds as soon as it gets dark, just in case somebody's snooping on you, all of which I think makes Sliver one of the classic erotic thrillers from the 90s. All right, I hope that you guys are still with me out there, because now that we've survived the somebody's watching era, we're stepping into the somebody's whispering era, in a story where the scariest surveillance system is actually in your own mind. Here, a regular guy with a regular life gets hypnotized at a party, which is unregular, and suddenly his brain unlocks a cool new feature, seeing things he can't unsee, whispers, visions, a presence that won't stop knocking from the inside, and the closer he gets to the truth, the more the neighborhood feels like it's hiding something under the floorboards. It's 1999, Stir of Echoes, starring Kevin Bacon. Stir of Echoes is one of those late 90s gems that feels like it should have been a bigger everybody saw this hit, but instead it actually ended up becoming the wait, you haven't seen this Kevin Bacon thriller that you would rent with friends or family. The premise here is simple but beautifully cruel. A regular Chicago dad gets hypnotized at a party and suddenly his brain flips on the supernatural reception, like somebody found the remote and changed the TV input signal. Now he's seeing flashes, hearing whispers, and has visions of a ghostly girl, and quickly begins to realize his seemingly normal house is keeping the receipts from past trauma. Now, financially, it did do respectable business, but it should have been a bigger hit. It cost around $12 million to make. It opened with $5.8 million. It finished with $21 million in the States, with worldwide numbers pushing that tally up to $23 million. So Decent numbers, but not a true indication, I think, of how well dialed in the filmmaking for this one was. Even the critics were on board. Roger Ebert called it one of Kevin Bacon's best performances, and Janet Maslin had good words in her review as well, but sadly, it wasn't enough to push this movie to the $50 million range where I think it should have ended up. But the biggest hindrance to Stir of Echoes was actually that it came out not too long after the similarly occult-themed thriller The Sixth Sense. That movie was just an absolute vacuum to the market, so this one got overlooked. I remember seeing it at the second run theater on a rainy day off. I loved it. It had me locked in. It was actually one of the first DVDs I bought as well. I was writing a lot of the time. I loved the structure of this story and how it dropped its clues and how it was able to play with the tension at ease. I think Kevin Bacon really delivers a great performance. He's the real MVP here. He is able to sell the slow unraveling without turning it into cartoon madness. He's scared, he's frustrated, he's obsessed, but still trying to do all the normal life stuff, which actually ends up making it a little bit creepier. Director-writer David Kopp keeps it very grounded and grimy, so it really does play like a ghost tale that wandered in from the real world, not from a fog machine-filled haunted house. And yes, it did have the bad luck of landing in 99's horror thriller Traffic Jam with The Sixth Sense just still towering over everything nearby, but as a nostalgic watch today, it still rules. It's tense, soulful, legitimately spooky, and packed with the kind of creepy moments that makes you stare down your own hallway like something could be lurking in the shadows. Now, you're definitely going to want to stick around for this one. We've dealt with ghosts in the walls. Now it's time to deal with nightmares in the digital world, because this next rental is pure early 90s tech terror with a hefty side of VR neon. In this one, a scientist starts experimenting with virtual reality and intelligence enhancement and chooses a sweet, simple landscaper as his test subject. At first, it's inspiring like a sci-fi glow-up, and then the upgrades keep coming, and so does the power. And pretty soon, the real world starts looking optional, and the digital world starts to take over. It's 1992's The Lawnmower Man, starring Jeff Fahey and Pierce Brosnan. The Lawnmower Man is peak VHS sci-fi oddity, the kind of movie you rented because the cover promised virtual reality, and in 1992 that pretty much meant your imagination was going to go on a wild ride. The setup here is pure classic cautionary tale material. Pierce Brosnan is playing the scientist who decides to boost the intelligence of Job, a sweet gardener played by Jeff Fahey, by using experimental drugs in VR. I mean, what can go wrong, am I right? At first, it plays like a geeky sort of miracle, and then the movie yanks the wheel hard into a VR fever dream, and the insanity only escalates from there. And it absolutely thrived with audiences as a fun, weird theater hit. It opened number 2 just behind Wayne's World with $7.7 million. Final numbers would push to around $32 million domestically, all on a reported $10 million budget, so the numbers were pretty good. But critics were mostly not on board with this one. In his review with the New York Times, Vincent Canby pretty much said nothing outside of rewording the synopsis and throwing in torpor as a 25-cent word I had to look up. It means a state of physical or mental inactivity, which was much like the effort he put into his review, so he would know. Now, the real nostalgia juice these days is the early CGI. It's colorful, ambitious, it's loud, it has that era's unmistakable digital texture. Some of it looks dated now, 100%, but it's definitely dated in a very charming way. We ended up finding this movie on cable, and it soon became repeat viewing, mostly because of the wild special effects and all the action, and for me, maybe a little bit because of the sex scene too, since I was a lawnmower boy in the summers on occasion, and you can't talk about this one without the Stephen King footnote. It was marketed with his name. Stephen King would sue. The legal fallout included court orders and even contempt issues over removing his name from packaging and advertising, so there definitely was some behind-the-scenes drama.
I have a game in my house that you might like to play. Would you like that?
Yeah. Okay.
On screen, though, it's fueled on special effects and creative ambition. It rides the charm of Brosnan and Fahey effectively, and it thrives on a brisk pace that keeps everything feeling just fresh enough without wearing out its welcome. It is far from flawless. It is, however, though, a fascinating, we thought VR would eat the world alive time capsule, and that ending, phones ringing all over the world, it's pure late night cable legend. Now, since we're speaking on the themes of technology you shouldn't mess with, our closer today is the ultimate don't press play legend. Let's end on the tape that doesn't just haunt you, it schedules it. In this movie, a rumor spreads about a videotape. You watch it, then you get a phone call, and a few days later, you're gone. A reporter digs into it, thinking that it's a simple urban legend until the clues start stacking up like a curse with a fantastic filing system, and what begins as curiosity quickly turns into a countdown, and every answer that she finds feels like another step closer to the well. It's Ringu from 1998, starring Nanako Matsushima and Hiroyuki Sanada. To me, Ringu is the final boss of creepy horror movies that rely on tension and timing over blood and gore. This is not a jump scare machine, it's really a slow burn story that builds a foreboding tension and a looming dread that just seeps into the room and takes over. I think the genius in this movie's hook is still very strong. You get a cursed videotape, a phone call, then 7 days. It's really so simple you can explain it to a friend in one sentence and then spend the next week side-eyeing every ringing phone after you watch it. I was between high school and college when this movie hit the States during the wave of Japanese horror that splashed into the US in the mid to the late 90s, and I loved it. I thought it really hit different than Hollywood horror. There was an artistic elegance in the scares. It really got in your mind and it felt smart. In terms of finances, Ringu is one of the great small movie, huge impact stories. The budget is commonly listed at around $1.5 million. It grossed $19.5 million worldwide, which is an absurd return for something this small, restrained, and eerie. It premiered in Japan on January 31st in 1998, and it basically helped kick the door open for the J-horror wave that followed with other movies like Ju-on and Pulse. What hits hardest these days on a rewatch is just how grounded it feels overall, primarily due to the natural lighting that just strips away any studio gloss. Nanako Matsushima plays the reporter like a real person, doing real work. She's following leads, piecing things together. You're working the case with her. She's trying to stay rational as the world seems to get more irrational. And Hideo Nakata directs everything with this calm, patient confidence, like he knows the scariest stuff is what happens in the quiet seconds when more often than not, nothing is happening. I think the imagery of Ringu is iconic without being loud. The well, the eeriness of the interiors, the static, the VHS tapes, ugly little collage of nightmares, it all still hits. I think Ringu plays like horror that feels like it was discovered by accident, not created for cinema. And to this day, with its smaller budget and far less gusto, it's far better than the 2002 US remake. With this one, by the time the end credits roll, you don't feel like you just watched a movie. You feel like you might have watched a cursed object, and you may need a few spritzes of Jacquard Noir to ward off any potential spirits. And that wraps up tonight's trip through the vault, guys. Now, if you want even more retro comfort cinema, make sure to check out my Friday night rental series, where we hang out at the mom and pop's video stores back in the 80s with all kinds of cult classics, action chaos, absurd comedies, and just the kind of movies that feel like a weekend hangout with a 6-pack of Jolt Cola, pizzas, and plenty of chips. You can find all those episodes right here. Now, I want to hear from you guys. Any of your favorites in this lineup? Which of these are you rewatching first? Also, if you've got your own weekend rental or late night cable staples from the past that you loved, drop them in the comments. I love hearing your guys' opinions because you guys are always serving up some deep cut mentions that always deserve a spot in the vault. And if you want to support the channel, the easiest way is the classic combo. Like, subscribe, share this video with a fellow retro movie gremlin who still appreciates the sound of a VHS tape. Rewinding it genuinely helps out the channel more than people realize, and I would greatly appreciate it. All right, guys, this is the sign off. The sign is closed. The vault is locked. So until next time, keep the classics alive. Keep the conversation going down in the comments. And remember, movies never say die.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?